Okay, so far in our default kind of first person template that we're working in, but you can be working in whichever one you want. We don't have any widgets in there already. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make one. So there's two ways that we can do this in Unreal. Two quick ways anyway off the back. So one way is you can right click in a bit of empty space, and then you can hover over user interface and then choose widget blueprint. The other way is you'll notice there's a massive add new button up the top left of the content browser. We can then hover over user interface and then go to widget blueprint. So if we quickly pop into Unreal, we'll have a look at both of those. So with this content folder, I'm just going to make a new folder here, just because I want to keep everything in here. So UI, and we're going to call it lecture 1. So from here, I'm just going to double click, and I'm going to store my stuff in here for today. So if I right click and choose user interface and then hover over widget blueprint, I can choose that. So straight away, we can give it a name. I'm just going to call it UI underscore first menu, and then hit enter. So that other way that we were doing it was we can click add, hover over user interface down the bottom, and then widget blueprint. Again, I'm going to call it UI underscore, and we'll call it second menu. So the reason I'm putting UI on the front of these is quite often you can search for stuff just depending on its name as well. So it's just a good habit to get like a naming convention in place. So obviously when you guys go to move on to group modules, or you're actually on like some group modules at the minute, it's a really good practice to kind of get these things put in place like quite early on in production. So from here now, if we want to work on one of these, we're going to double click on it to open it up. So this was exactly what I was explaining in the last thing. In the last video was up on the top in the palette, we've got like our default kind of categories that are put together, or it's searchable. Underneath that we got our hierarchy. So at the minute we've just got this main canvas panel which is taking up all our space. Underneath that we've got our animation panel, and then on the right hand side we've got our details panel, which you notice now when I click on the canvas it's a little bit different than when I have the main UI selected. And then up the very top right hand corner was what we were looking at before, which is our, at the minute we're in our designer view, and if we click on graph we're now in our kind of our scripting view, so our graph editor view. So we're going to be flicking between the two of these today, just depending on what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to add something here just so we can see if this works. So we're going to add in some text, and you see we get a load of different options here. I'm just going to go with text here. So we can click and drag here, or we can click and drag it into our kind of canvas here as well. Either one will work. So as soon as we click and drag it in, you see now it's given a name, text block. So from there you can rename it if you want. So we will call it test text. So it just makes it a little bit easier for you to tell what is what. So obviously here, like I said in the previous video, we can turn on and off visibility as well. So we have a quick look over here at the details panel now. So because we're on a text element, the panel we're getting is totally different from than if we were on a button or a brush. So with it selected, you notice here we can change the text that's going to appear, or we can bind it to something. So in one of the later videos we're going to look at how we can bind this to something that's attached to a character or a variable in game. But for now we're just going to replace this. So we're just going to say this is a test text box. When I hit enter, you notice it updates as well. Underneath here we've got our color and opacity, so we can kind of change this to be whatever color we want. We can also change the alpha of it, meaning like how visible, how not visible it is. And remember, alphas go from 0 to 1. Underneath that we've got our font class as well, so we could change it to be larger text if we wanted. We can make it bold, not bold, and then we can change the justification and all sorts of stuff here underneath. So at the minute I'm just going to leave it at that. That's fine. Now you notice up the top left hand corner we've got this like weird icon that looks a little bit like a sunflower. So what that is that's the anchor point. So this means whenever this is deployed in game, it'll always try and anchor it up to this top left hand corner. So it'll use that as its kind of almost its center point. So as we scale it, it'll always try and keep it this far away from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on here. I'm going to change the anchor point to be center. That just basically means it'll always try and keep this box like right in the middle. I'll try and use this as its like center point. So we don't need any scripting here. That's fine. We're just going to hit compile and we're going to save it. And then we can close that down. So that's just sitting there. If we need to go back in, we can double click. Everything's still saved there, same as before. So we flick back now. The next thing we want to look at is how we can actually call this in game. So there's a couple of different ways we can do it. The main thing that we're looking for is a piece of scripting called create widget. So on this example here, what I've scripted out is on event begin play, it's going to start playing a sound or an audio component. After that, it's going to create a widget. It's going to add it to the viewport, and then it's going to show the mouse cursor. So this, we don't need to worry about this for now, but these ones here, we do. Okay. So if we were to hit play, we notice like our game's playing as normal. So what we want to do now is we want to script to create this widget and add it to the viewport. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You could do it in the level blueprint, or you could do it in the first person character, or you could do it in the game mode. For now, we're going to do it in the level blueprint. So we're going to click on blueprints, open level blueprint. And what we want to do is we want to find event begin play. So all I'm doing here is just right click and then we can search. So the next thing we want to do is create a widget. So again, I'm just left clicking and dragging off here and letting go. So I want to create widget. We want to add it to the viewport. Now if I hit compile, you'll notice this doesn't work. And the reason is it needs a little bit more information from us. So we need to tell it which widget do we want to add to the screen. So we're going to choose first menu. Now if I compile again, you notice there's another error. And basically what that means is it's not 100% sure what to add to the viewport. Because we've made this widget in the game, so it's made in like the game's kind of world, but it's not told where to go. So we need to actually wire this up here. So this is the target for the add to viewport. Okay. And you can see now that's just appeared on screen. Apologies for the loud kind of shooting noise. So this is something that we're going to use quite a bit because we need it. Once we make a widget, we need to then tell it what to do. So we need to add it to the viewport. The reason why this here has an own player is like quite often if you're doing multiplayer games and stuff like that, you'll need to specify where the widget has to go, like whose viewport is it going to add to. But for now, this is okay for us. So on event begin play, we're making the widget and then we're adding it to the viewport. So we might want to make that disappear after a while. So we can do a delay here. We'll do a delay of like 3 seconds. And then from there, we're going to do something called remove from parent. Now you notice I had to tick this off. So this is context sensitive. So this is now all possible actions. So the difference being if I had it dragged off here, I could have told it to remove from parent. Okay. So it's whatever way you're kind of comfortable with doing. If you can remember that. So if we go remove from parent and we tick off context sensitive, you can see straight away it's asking us like, what is the target? So what are you trying to remove from the parent? And we want to say we want to remove this widget that we made at the start. So this is why this is important, because you could have 3 or 4 widgets on screen at the one time and you need to specify exactly which one you want to remove. Or you might want to remove loads at the one time, and that's where we might like run a loop or something instead. So now if we hit play, sorry, I hit play on this menu, you can see that delays run and then it's removed it from the parent. So that's a real quick intro just into how we can make a widget and how we can add it to a screen as well. So this is all fine, but this is working inside this first person example map. So what we want to do now is we actually want to make our own level. So we're going to do similar to what we did for making the widget. We're going to right click, hover over level, and we're going to have this one and we're going to call it splash. So just for good practice, I would put LVL at the start. And now I'm going to double click on that to open it. So straight away you notice this is totally empty. So if I was to hit play now, we don't really know what's going on. Okay, so if we click on this, now on your Unreal this might not be visible, so on mine it's a thing called world settings. So you see now we've got game mode override. So we can tell it which one that we want to have. So at the minute this doesn't have one, so it's using like a bunch of defaults for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new game mode. So we're going to right click, go to blueprint class, and we're going to search for all classes, and then we're going to go for game mode, and then select this. I'm going to make this thing called menu mode. And what menu mode is going to do is it's going to tell the game exactly what to use. So with my level selected now, I can scroll down and I can find menu mode. Now I've only changed one thing in the menu mode, and that's where HUD class I've set to none, because I'm not really worried about there being a default HUD class. So now when I hit play, you notice that crosshair doesn't appear anymore. Whereas when this was set before, the crosshair was on screen. I don't want that crosshair because I want to be making a menu. So from here now, we're going to get that widget working the same as we did before. So we're going to click on blueprints, open level blueprint. We know what we want to do. We want it to be event begin play. We're going to create a widget. We know straight after that we're going to add to viewport. And we want it to be first menu. So I'm just going to make sure I've set that back to be menu game mode. So remember, menu mode, sorry, is specifying what these default kind of classes are. Okay, so I'm just going to do this in a new editor menu just so you can see it working. So from here, we now know that this is working fine. It's adding it to the screen fine, which is all okay with us. So now we can go back into our first menu and we can start messing around with some stuff here. So I'm going to change this text to just say a game by Maddie. Space that out a little bit. So from here, we're going to do like a quick little bit of animation, nothing major. But we're going to grab this text, we're going to click on this animation button down here. I'm going to call fade in. And now if I click on it, you can see I can add like different tracks. So I could say, right, I want to just animate this, or I want to do the whole canvas panel. So I clicked on the track, I've now added a test track, or sorry, test text for this. And from here, I want to add a new track. Now, when you click on this, it's kind of going to ask me, like, what do you want to animate? So I'm thinking I'll probably animate maybe like the opacity. So if I click on this track and I find color and opacity, I can click here. Now on the first frame, you can see we've got these different values. So I'm going to go down to alpha. I'm going to set this to be 0. And then I'm going to move along to 2 seconds. And then I'm going to set this to be 1. So basically what that means is it's going to fade that up. And then if I wait maybe till 4 seconds and then I set this to be 0 again. So remember, alpha only goes between 0 and 1. 0 being 100% transparent, 1 being 100% visible. So from here as well, like I could animate these colors if I wanted. So I could give these like totally different values. I could say, right, I want it to be like really red. And then I could zero this out and zero that out, which would give me like 100% red. So all this is doing is it's modifying values that are inside our details panel. So it's editing those. But the problem being, if we were to just hit play now, we can't see that happen. Okay, so I'm just going to do it inside the selected viewport. So we can't see that take place, and it's because nowhere in our scripting have we actually told that we want it to work. So this is like a nice handy one that a lot of you will probably end up using for your splash screen, like for your game logo and stuff appearing. So this, at the minute we're using text, but this could by all means be an image or something different. So now we want to call this and we want to do it inside this graph editor. So you see now, because we've made this in here, when we pop into our graph editor, we've got a fade in, which is a widget animation. So from here, we've got a couple of different things. So the tick is every tick of the game. We're not going to need that for now. Event pre-construct is before this gets made in the game. Is there anything that we want to happen? So it's kind of in the editor and the game it's called. Whereas event construct is kind of like our event begin play. So whenever this gets made, what do we want to happen? So we can grab this fade in, and then we can drag off that and we can tell it to play. So we can say play animation. So whenever this widget gets constructed, it's going to get our fade in and it's going to play it. We've got loads of different kind of options here as well. So we can play it forward, back. We can ping pong stuff over and back as well. We can like start it at different times. So we can start it like halfway through the animation if we want. So if we hit compile now and we go back and we hit play, you can see now it's fading in and it's fading back out again. So there's a couple of different things we're doing here. We are in the level blueprint. We're making the widget and then we're adding to the viewport. So that's happening straight away. As soon as that's happening, inside our widget, we're then playing an animation. So you can see how you can stack this stuff together like quite nicely. So on event construct, if we needed to, we could kind of say like, oh, by the way, we want like a short delay at the start. So we don't want that to happen like straight away. We could say like, right, well, let's do a 2-second delay and then let's play it. But so the problem is now it's taking my default value of it at the start. So what we might want to do is just go in here and just alpha that down, like turn down the alpha for it. So what we could maybe do here is we might need to play that to begin with. we could add another 2 seconds. This at the start. Yeah. So what's probably going to be handier there, because I'm just thinking, because it's like pulling through that default value at the start. When we make this, we could set it to be that to begin with, or we could actually just take this and you can copy and paste these frames as well. So if I was to click and drag this a little bit on, so we'll go with 1 second in, want to be that, and then we'll go 3 seconds for that, and then we'll drag this to be 5 seconds. So sorry, it's a little bit long-winded way of doing it, but so now if we were to hit play, you notice it's waiting that couple of seconds to start, then it's fading in, then it's fading back down again. So that's a real quick way that we can just do some very fast animation, just kind of straight out of the box. There's nothing kind of like overly complex in here. It's all very kind of like straightforward. So in the next video, what we'll look at is how we can kind of start linking this through to the next menu, which will kind of be like our main menu, and then we can start making some buttons, and then we can start adding some function to those buttons as well.